Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Hi, Rob Browne here with you on this Tuesday morning. Got a great show lined up. I got Franz Beard in the bullpen chomping at the bits to get on, and we got some great stuff he was talking with me about yesterday after the show. He was late coming on. I said, Franz, you're too good to have in spurts. You got a lot of great information, great thoughts, great writer, you, Buddy Martin, the whole team down there, GatorBaitMedia.com. Joined in the second segment this morning. Mitch Davis will check in. And I stayed up late like everybody else did watching baseball. We'll get into the Stanford game in a minute. We're going to start a GoFundMe page for some good lights for that crap-ass stadium they have out there at Stanford. I just checked. I think they've got one of the largest endowments in America, but they're tighter than a clam with lockjaw when it comes to improving and updating their athletic facilities. I guess that's what they like to do. But the Texas players couldn't see the ball. I get that, but everybody had been talking about this. You knew it was coming. So really interesting story there, but not surprised. All right, Tommy Kane checks in with us from Atlanta, talking some ACC activity in the second hour, and Rodney Orr-Tyler Insider will check in the fourth segment this morning. 6 days a week, 50 hours a month of content. We're putting it out there. Wherever you live, doesn't matter where you live, you may be lacking for coverage of the Southeastern Conference, college football, basketball, baseball. You don't want a bunch of guys on there and gals talking about politics and talking about lockdowns and viruses and stuff. We talk about sports. Now, if it ventures into sports, like when we had Riley Gaines on a couple of weeks ago, fairness. Men compete against women and women compete against men. There ain't no in between. You want to make a special league for yourself, go for it, okay? That's the way it is. Riley Gaines, what a patriot. Her mother and father have got to be so proud of her whole family. Love what she is doing. She is a warrior, patriot, more power to her. You ought to all be glad we got young people like her. All these people that keep buying into this false narrative that the young people in America – there's no hope. Well, the problem is the people saying that, most of them don't have any faith in themselves. I got 4 kids, 2 boys, 2 girls. They are squared away. They will stay at a game for the full 60. Friends, follow us on Twitter at Sidelines_live. Last year at the Auburn-Penn State game, and you know that was an epic beatdown. Gordon Solich, what would he have said at that one there? This one's getting ugly.
Well, they had you in the spinning toe hold, followed by an airplane spin and an atomic elbow drop to finish you off.
You are correct, sir. So I'm at that game, and Dr. Waller May and I were there. In the fourth quarter, we were down there near the field. Of course, you could sit at that point basically anywhere you wanted. And my son Wilson said, "Hey, Dad, are you still here?" I said, "Hell yeah." I said, "What about you?" He goes, "Full 60." I said, that's our motto in our family. If you expect the team to play a full 60, you got to stay the full 60. Franz Beard, you know about endurance, longevity, strength, smartness, acuity, great writing. Let's talk about what's going on in college athletics right now. Stanford, can we start the GoFundMe page for some lights for that stadium? I mean, do they think it's kind of funny and cute to have a crappy band that plays kazoos in a stadium with very, very, very poor lighting?
Well, you know, one of the things I had mentioned last week when we were on, I said, if the Aggies can play them in the daytime, they'll beat them. If they have to play them at night, I don't know. And that's what happens at night. Nobody, even the people in the booth, couldn't tell that the ball was bouncing off the wall there in the bottom of the ninth because they lost the ball. The lights are just terrible there. It's I don't know what they call it. Down there, the dugout or the cave or whatever. They've got some name for it. Sunken Diamond. That's it. And you'd think that they'd have good facilities. They have the worst gym in the entire Pac-12. They call it Maples Pavilion, and I don't know. I guess they're talking about Marla Maples or somebody like that. Maybe Donald Trump loaned him the money to put his wife's ex-wife's name on it to get her out of his hair or something like that. It bugs me that Stanford made it. It just really does. Tennessee made it last night, and look at how the bracket shapes up. You got Tennessee going against LSU. You're going to have Chase Dollander going against Paul Scanes Saturday. One of those teams is going to use its ace. One of those teams, because it uses its ace, is going to be in trouble. I look at it like this. I think it's either going to be a Florida LSU or a Florida Wake Forest Gump final. That's just the way I see it. I don't think Tennessee gets out of that bracket. I really don't. And let's face it, I hope Stanford is to and through. I just really do, particularly after the way they got in there. And as you point out, it's woke you, and goodness, I'm surprised their women's basketball team hadn't found some 7-foot guy and said, "Put on a bra, we'll put you on the team, and you can be a star."
That's probably on the agenda, and I can't wait for the Auburn fan base to head out to Berkeley, California in September to see that bunch of weirdos. Franz, what's funny is back when I was in school, and you've heard it before, people thought Florida was weird because they had, hippies. There's hippies on every campus and stuff like that. What we consider to be weird or eccentric or odd in the South is nothing. I mean, it's not unusual. And in fact, I've been on most every campus out there. You look at these Stanford, again, the Pac-12 network, when you watch that, all they do is show replays of the Stanford-Cal game in 1982. That conference is stuck on stupid. Why and how did it get to this point? When did they quit caring?
Well, the problem is out there is they think of themselves as academically elite, more so even than the Big Ten, because you've got UCLA and Southern Cal, which are outstanding academic institutions if you are to believe the ratings. Cal and Stanford right there together. Cal being considered typically one of the top 4 or 5 public institutions in the country, and you got Stanford. It's right up there with Harvard. Yeah. Oregon State, Washington is another one that's very, very, very big. And they've always looked down on Arizona and Arizona State because, and also on Utah and Colorado, because they don't think of them as academically qualified. They are our inferior brothers down there. Oh, okay. Who cares? I think this is why I think this elite mentality has a lot to do with why they're struggling so hard to get a media contract. Because I think you slice off that part of the country, and the rest of the country isn't weird like they are out there. The rest of the country, I remember when Arizona State, had Frank Cush, and by gosh, they sold out their stadium. They had great players, et cetera, like that. Arizona's been good when you had the Desert Swarm and defense and stuff like that. Urban Meyer proved he can win championships at Utah, and Colorado's won a national championship. Those 4 schools have nothing in common with the 8. Well, it's now going to be 6 elites up there. I believe those 4 teams are going to bowl. Colorado and Arizona have already been in very deep discussion with the Big 12.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's a matter of if they're going to join. I think it's a matter of when, and I think the win is going to be sooner than we expect. I found it amusing that Monday, the president of Washington State says, we have a deal for media rights coming soon. You can only cry wolf so many times, Rob.
Yeah.
And sooner or later, after people, it's kind of like Joe Biden saying, "Oh, I'm going to talk to the press someday." Well, okay, someday may never come. Yeah.
Well, what I'm saying, and I'm agreeing with you. I look at Washington and Washington State. Look at those two. Washington's in Seattle, and there's so much money. And when you get too much money, you get a lot of weirdness. I mean, if you've got a kid that's really weird historically, you send them to one of three places: France, New York, or San Francisco. Well, that's where they are. But the intellectual elitists out there, they're harmful for athletics. And we're told that athletics aren't good. Look, the physically fit, mentally alert, morally straight. It's in the Ranger Creed. It's in the Boy Scout motto. It makes total sense. What I'm predicting, Franz, in the next very soon, I believe Arizona State and Arizona are going to be in the Big 12. The Big 12. I also think Utah and Colorado are going into the Big 12. And I won't be surprised. I know I live in Memphis. I know Memphis is working really hard behind the scenes to join the Big 12. They want to be in a major conference. You don't want to, though, be going into the theater when everybody else is running out because it's fully engulfed in flames. But the Big 12, I believe, is going to make it. I think the Pac-12 is on life support. Now, I want to switch to the ACC. You got a lot of experience there. They tend to mirror what the SEC does or is likely to do. And Tommy Kane's going to be on with us in the second hour. He played basketball at NC State, worked with ACC Network and Fox Sports Southeast for a long time, has his own production company, Pack Production. I think he has a very good handle on what's going on in the ACC. But you know what I've noticed? Look what Florida has. Franz Beard, Buddy Martin. You get, Ben Troop's on there with you. Of course, he's got his own show over there, ESPN Coastal in Savannah. And I look at Alabama, Gary Harris, Rodney Orr. You don't see guys like that are that well-versed in across the board in all the athletics, the whole story of those schools they covering these other schools. I mean, it takes a lot of people to care to produce a Franz Beard, GatorBaitMedia.com. And that's why I tell people, and I do it myself, I read, you better know what's going on at Florida, because it's kind of like the 30-year bond with interest rates, the Treasury. You've got to pay attention. The ACC, there's a lot of that in there as well. University of Florida, your school, can rank and stand against any of the elite ACC schools, and I don't think they like that. And I'm not saying I don't like the ACC, but NC State is just as good a school as North Carolina. They have the engineering. They have so much to offer, and we're going to get into that with Tommy, but that elitist attitude is really hurting the athletics in that league, the ACC now.
Well, it's kind of like North Carolina State has always been viewed by the Dookies and the Carolina Blues to be, our country cousins. Never forget driving into Chapel Hill for a North Carolina State Carolina football game. In the Hinton James dormitory, they had a great big old sign that said 130,000 rednecks can't be wrong. Back the pack. And that's the mentality. It's kind of like some people, in the state of Mississippi, they look at Mississippi State as Moo U, the cow college. The Alabama people think Auburn is a cow college, and simply because Auburn's got a vet school and that school of agriculture. Auburn University though people 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 don't manage to take a look at the billionaires that have come out of Auburn University. Now, why did they do that? They got to get an education there. And I heard something very recently, and it's true. It said that you come to Auburn to be a part of a community and part of a family. And that's why Auburn is special to these people, because it remains that way afterward. And I don't think you get that, for example, in some of these places. I don't think people think of Vanderbilt as, I'm going my Vanderbilt family. I don't think they think that there. I don't think they think of that like that at Duke or some of these other places. It is different down here. And the elitist attitudes have a lot to do with why nobody watches, or the good players don't go to places like, for example, Duke, and consistently Pitt and Syracuse. It's all that elitist attitude. I was just talking with Shane Matthews just a few minutes ago. And one of the things we were talking about is, people are delude themselves when they think you're going to win with 20 football games with 22 Boy Scouts. You're not going to. Florida had Tim Tebow. Yes, we did. We also had probably about 10 psychopaths. And
Franz, oh man, this is true. Hold that thought. We're going to come right back after the break. Franz Beer, GatorMedia.com, right after this.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Hi, and here's something interesting. You're talking about the makeup of that Florida team, and we talked about the College of Agriculture. We're in Memphis, the largest small town in America, 1.2 million people here in the ADI. But right now, I'm over in Parkin, back and forth in Memphis every day almost. Something interesting, a College of Agriculture, when people love to look down, I know a lot of Mississippi State grads, and they're very smart, very successful people. They're engineers, they're in farming. Here's an example of why the colleges of agriculture in the state of Arkansas, Arkansas State University and University of Arkansas have these agricultural extension stations all over the state. You'll see them in every county. Remember Mr. Gimble on the Green Acres? You have 2 Mr. Gimbles in every county.
Hank Kimball, couldn't remember couldn't remember. He could agree and disagree with himself in the same sentence.
Yeah, exactly. So here's where they had an interesting conversation with one of the guys who works, a friend of ours who works for one of these big farms in this area. They have probably 10,000 acres. Of course, there's one right next to us, 25,000. Okay, what used to be, you got about, say, 150 bushels of rice per acre. That was a big deal. Okay. Now, because each year they take their seed and they send it here in Arkansas to these agricultural extension agencies, the offices, the field offices, like over in Stuttgart. They work with the seed. They're now up to 280 bushels an acre on most of their farmland here in Cross County that this particular farm has. Now, I said, what's the price of rice? What's a bushel of rice? $14 a bushel. Do the math. 14 times 280, that's $3,900 per acre. Let's say you've got 10,000 acres of rice in the ground. Well, that's $39,240,000. Now, it takes a cost to put it in the ground. You also got to irrigate. Of course, lately we've been getting a ton of rain. That's why the mosquito invasion, Franz, the mosquitoes around here are fairly polite. They knock on the door, open up, blood drive. Come on, let's go. We've got citronella, mint, everything you can put out there. But that's the point. Mississippi State, Arkansas State, Auburn, all these schools, these land grant schools.
Florida's a land grant. Florida has.
I was going to say, Florida's unique.
Florida has the biggest agricultural schools in the entire country.
Yeah, you do. And you think about the citrus. Just think about Ben Hill Griffin. There you go right there. And you look at Florida as one of only 6 schools in America to have a medical school, a law school, and a college of veterinary medicine. And so
all on the same campus.
Yeah, all on the same campus. You just don't see that. I mean, Alabama's medical school is not in Tuscaloosa. It's in Birmingham. The law school, they got a really good law school in Tuscaloosa. But the point being, so does Sanford there, Cumberland Law School, which used to be up north of Nashville. But all these schools in the South, you're right, we are connected. I remember in 1998, Mississippi State, the second year, they had that run, 97, 8, 9, and 2000. But in 98, they went to the SEC championship. But even when they weren't in that, they were taking 25 and 30,000 people to Atlanta to the Peach Bowl. Mississippi State people don't look at the record before they pledge their loyalty and their love to that school. They love the dirt. They love the bricks. They love the mortar. Same thing when you say go Gators or Roll Tide or War Eagle or go Dogs, go Cox, whatever you want to say, you don't hear that. And you also don't see in the fourth quarter of a game fans yelling, Pac-12, Pac-12. They don't have that look. We are tied into the land. You remember the great fugitive poets back in the 1920s, Franz? Now, none of us were around then, but you had the great writers from Vanderbilt that wrote the treatise about, I will take my stand in the South, the agrarians, that as we got away from that culture and warehoused people in big cities and got away from the farms, the trouble that would come our way. Well, that's what they've done in a lot of these places like the Pac-12. That's why the Southeastern Conference is so connected. You want to have dirt and grass around your stadium for people to tailgate, and they build relationships over time. I'm wound up about this stuff, but George Kliavkoff, the Pac-12, you came from Las Vegas. You came from Fantasyland. He's better than Larry Scott? Really? All he's doing is watching teams leave the league.
Well, the Pac-12 is in trouble. They talk about a league on life support. And the ACC, quite frankly, isn't much better because even though they're not going to have the secession of 6 or 7 schools that really want to leave, they can't because they all these schools signed this grant of rights deal. North Carolina, let me give you an example. If North Carolina and Clemson decided to join the SEC, and the SEC was willing to take them, which they are not, here's what would happen. They'd have to pay the ACC $120 million each to leave. But then they would have to pay whatever they made in the SEC. Let's say it's going to be close to $100 million a year. They'd have to pay that $100 million a year to the ACC through 2036. So you want to know why? They're begging, they're saying, look, we got to have money. We're going to die here. And they are.
Yeah.
They are. You look at what's happened here lately. We've had Florida won the men's golf. Florida won the men's track, finished second in women's track. The baseball team, I think, probably is going to win there too. Yeah. But you also had Georgia that won the football championship. etc. like that. Florida finished second to Oklahoma. And where's Oklahoma coming to? Which league are they coming to? The SEC. Oklahoma has won 7 national championships in football. They've won 7 of the last 10 in softball. They've won the last 3 in gymnastics. Texas has won three national championships in football. They've also won a ton in swimming and all these other sports. And they're just coming up, and look what's happening. They're coming to this league, and the reason they're coming to this league is they'd rather come to a place where the passion is there, where somebody wrote a book, I think, called Good Old Fashioned Hate. And, let me throw one other thing out that I think a lot of people don't realize. The people outside our particular area don't realize. Football was all we had. People don't understand what happened in Reconstruction, which was forced upon us by the lovely elite people in Washington after the death of Abraham Lincoln. We got this wonderful thing called Reconstruction, and it forced us for so long. It kept us, like having your thumb down on you. Plus, so many men died during the war. They used to have this thing called the Old Maid Law in the state of Mississippi, which said that if you were a daughter of a Civil War veteran and you were teaching, you could teach till the day you died. You didn't have to. You did not have to continue, to retire. I had during my formative years in Mississippi, my Mississippi history teacher, Miss Emma Butler. Miss Emma couldn't hear. She had hearing aids that looked like footballs on the side of her head. And, quite frankly, when we wanted to talk in class, we'd take 2 quarters and just start rubbing them together, 3 or 4 of us. And then she'd start taking her hearing aids in, put them back in. We'd rub them some more. And then she'd just take them out and she couldn't hear a thing. It was terrible what we did. But, when you're in the 9th grade,
we did much worse. Trust
me. You think of such things. But
of course.
Sure, her father had served in the Civil War. She never married, so she was allowed to continue to teach. And I'm guessing she was in her 80s then. She used to fall asleep at her desk. I mean, but this was the kind of thing. People don't realize how many men, the devastating toll that was taken. Then they look at what happened. Alabama emerges as the powerhouse football team in the South, and so did Tennessee with Bob Nealand. You got Frank Thomas there at Alabama, and Bob Nealand. Wonderful rivalries that happened there, and you look at this stuff that goes on there, and they don't realize football was all we had. There was some pride. This is where the tradition started, is because football was all we had down here. We're beaten in the ground. Reconstruction tore us apart. The male population had been devastated. People don't realize it wasn't until the 1960s that the populations in Alabama and Georgia, Mississippi, Tennessee, Florida, that the populations began to even out, as far as you had far more women than you had men, because all these men had been lost in the Civil War. And it took several generations to repopulate our states, etc. like that. Football was all we had down here. And that's why the tradition, when they say the SEC, it just means more. That's one of the big reasons. And they don't say it like that, understanding that necessarily that it means more because of something that happened 150 years ago. but quite frankly, it is. Well, that has a lot to do, awful lot to do with why it does mean more.
Yeah, no question. I mean, you had a population in the South of 9 million people, 3.6 million slaves, 5.4 million people, 617,000 were killed, died during the war. Actual combat deaths were about 214,000. But when Alabama went to that Rose Bowl, that was a big national deal. But prior to that, Franz, Mike Donahue had been at Auburn from 1904 to 1922 and won a national championship in 1910, 13, and 14. Barely spoke English. He spoke Gaelic, brogue. But the South, there's a book I read about Auburn man, about George Petrie, born in 1866 in Montgomery, went to Virginia, was a professor, came back to Auburn in 1892 and brought the colors of orange and blue and white from Charlottesville and put football together at Auburn for that first ever game. February 20th, 1892, Piedmont Park in Atlanta. Auburn won 10-0. About 5,000 people were there. But interestingly, most of the people there were wearing their old uniforms from the war. And Georgia's mascot at that time was a goat, had a black and red cape on him. And that the South, for about that 60-year period, up really until Alabama went to the Rose Bowl, had been through hell, emasculation, and they got their pride back, and they've never let go of it. And that's why the phrase, it does matter more. You know, you ever notice when you try to help someone that doesn't want to help themselves? You know, my wife Audrey says this a lot. You can't help people. You can't care more than they care. And the problem is with around the country, the Pac-12 and the Northeast, they wonder why, you know, look, college football, they want it at Boston College, but it's a handful of people that do. They want it at some of these other places, but it's a handful of people that do. Mitch knows this. Growing up in Memphis, lifelong Kentucky fan, moved to Tupelo recently, married into a Mississippi State family. As he says, MitchDavisShow.com covers all things in the SIP, Mississippi. Franz, you're from what, Macomb or Brookhaven?
We spent 3 of my formative years in Macomb.
Yeah, so you're down in the South part. And I was watching that game last night, Southern Miss, Mitch against Tennessee. And, you know, Tennessee got the win, but man, what a crowd. I think that stadium holds a little over 4,000, and there were almost 6,000 there. That's great for college baseball. And one thing about people at Southern Miss, Mitch, that I've noticed, they really don't care what Ole Miss and Mississippi State people are doing or what they think of them. They got their own world down there. They're 100 miles from New Orleans. But what a career for Scott Berry. And I love the sportsmanship for Tennessee players afterwards saluting him and the fans giving Scott Berry a standing ovation. But, Mitch, you're a baseball junkie. You live and breathe this stuff. And how are you?
Rob, Franz, thank y'all for allowing me to join you this morning. Good morning. I'm a little tired. Stayed up a little late last night writing some Southern Miss stuff and, talk about the Volunteers win. And had planned to go out to Omaha. Had Southern Miss won last night. Had my credentials, had my hotel booked, and I spent all morning getting hotels canceled and stuff like that. That would have been my second trip out to Omaha in 2 years. So, a little disappointed, but excited. We got 3 SEC representatives. And, Rob, before we even get started, I do want to give a tip of the cap to Scott Berry, a hell of a career. I mean, really, truly has been a hell of a career at Southern Miss. He's done wonders at Southern Mississippi. And, a lot of people around the state love Scott Berry, not only just Southern Miss fans, but also Mississippi State, Ole Miss people. They all love Scott Berry. Hell of a career. Hats off to Tennessee. They put a great performance out there. I think they're going to run into a buzzsaw when they play LSU. But one thing I want to address, Rob, and I've been very vocal about this the last 3 or 4 days, has been the treatment that Southern Miss and the state of Mississippi has received from the University of Tennessee. Fans, alumni, media, boosters, everybody that has been surrounded around that program has absolutely crapped on the state of Mississippi, crapped on Pete Taylor Park there at Southern Miss, and it is an embarrassment that we still have media that want to be homers for the University of Tennessee, that want to attack certain schools, let's say Southern Miss, for example, when, really truthfully, Rob, I moved down here from a big city in Memphis, and people here in the SIP are different. They are genuine people. The government, for years has forgotten about the state of Mississippi, and they try to make them pay for what's happened 200-300 years ago with slavery. But it really was unfortunate to see, all these media guys and Jack Foster, Wes Rucker, a couple of these other guys that wanted to attack the state of Mississippi just because the state of Mississippi is what it is. And I wanted to get that off my chest.
No, look, let me say this. We're going to take a break. We had Vince Ferrara on from the Sports Animal up in Knoxville. He and John Wilkerson called the games for Tennessee. And I will say they said nothing of that. But I'm with you. I think some of these people got to get over themselves. I mean, I love Mississippi. I love that state. My grandparents are from the Delta. I got a little farm down in the Delta that I get to hunt on. I love the people of Mississippi. So I'm with you, man. We're going to take a quick break. Mitch Davis, Franz Beard. Get ready to listen to some great stuff after this break. Well, I feel like I'm in a bullfight in Barcelona with that music in between there. Hey, hey. So look, Franz, I think Franz knows this, and Mitch, you're going to see this. And not that I'm just some, media expert, but when you are representing a school up in a press box, it's Southern Miss in that case. It's an on cheering in football, but the worst thing you can ever do is talk disparagingly about any school when you're up there because you're representing that school. And look, I can tell you, Jimmy Himes, he isn't saying that. Vince Ferrara, John Wilkerson, Bob Kessling. I mean, they know this is a giant family. The SEC, Southern Miss is right there. They're the same people. It's disappointing. I don't know what these people said about Southern or about the stadium or whatever, but we know the typical elitist attitude. I mean, if you've ever flown in a plane and you're flying over, Iowa, some jerk on the plane will say something about the cornfields down there. Well, don't talk about farmers in a disparaging way when your mouth is full. Shut up. So let's talk about what happened down there. I'll tell you, Tennessee looked good, Mitch. They're pitching. They've got some really, really strong pitching, but they got the win. They got to go to Omaha now. Let's talk about that field. I'm going to bounce it around with you and Franz. His Gators are in. Kentucky got down there in the Super Regional, but bottom line, the SEC has 3 teams out of the 8.
Rob, what's crazy about this is I look at this field and I look at the College World Series, and I was talking to somebody late last night. This is possibly the best College World Series, one of the best College World Series that we've seen in recent memory. I mean, the talent out there is going to be ridiculous. I mean, look at LSU, look at Florida. Florida's explosive, but then you got LSU, who's got Paul Skeens, who's got a really good bullpen. We saw LSU this weekend against Kentucky, against a good Kentucky team, dominate the Wildcats with their offensive explosiveness, and then they have the pitching to back it up. When you have Paul Skeens and he can go 8-9 innings of complete baseball, that's really hard to beat. And the thing about Tennessee, looking at that matchup with LSU, is they don't have the guys that they had last year to be able to go toe for toe with a team like LSU. And that's why, when the out late last night, I said LSU, Florida for the national championship, and I'm taking LSU just because I love Dylan Cruz, I love Tommy White, I love Trey Morgan. I love what that LSU team stands for. I picked LSU to win it all before the season started, and I'm riding high with the Tigers into the College World Series this year.
Friends, let's talk about that. pitching depth, hitting. Let's kind of juxtapose LSU versus Florida. Of course, LSU's got to deal with Tennessee first in Omaha, and Florida's got to deal with Stanford.
Florida starts out with Virginia, and the other teams in our
Virginia. That's right.
The other teams in our bracket are Oral Roberts and TCU. And TCU right now is hot enough that there isn't a team out there they couldn't beat. Oral Roberts just plays like a team that, they're loose. They the old saying, they don't give a rat's ass. Well, they don't. They just stand out there and they play ball and have fun. And I like the way they play. Virginia is really, really sound in a lot. They don't wow you, but they will overwhelm you with consistency, and that's what they've got. Florida in the last 4 or 5 weeks, Florida's bullpen has come together, and they're throwing strikes. When Florida is throwing strikes, Florida is going to be an awfully tough team. And the problem is this: you've emerged with Cade Fisher and Ryan Slater. Florida can go there with 5 guys who can start. The only team in the field that's got 5 guys who can start. I mean, people look, Ryan Slater's got 10 wins. He's 10-1. He's only started 4 games all year. But he's got a lot of innings, and he's done that. Cade Fisher is going to be a superstar. Caglione, Waldrop, and Sproat all throw 100 miles an hour. But they also all 3 have developed off-speed stuff that's really, really good. Florida's good. Can Florida be beaten? Of course it can. There isn't a team out there that can't be beaten. Mitch, I'm going to agree with you about one thing about there is an arrogance about Tennessee that I think we can deal with for the most part, every other team in the SEC. But then comes Tennessee, and we have problems dealing with them because there's something about them and that arrogance about them. You would think that, they just won it. They just won 10 games this year. Well, I mean, whoop-de-doo. I mean, they also got smoked by South Carolina the week after Florida's no defense defensed them. I mean, Florida had the worst defense in the entire country last year. And yet, against South Carolina, I don't think the Gamecocks, I think, had 115 yards of offense in that entire ball game. And yet, here comes Tennessee, and they're acting like Joe Milton is going to win the Heisman Trophy. I've seen Joe Milton since he played at Olympia High School in Orlando. If you're putting your money on Joe Milton, folks, you got problems. That freshman's going to be the quarterback at Tennessee. Count on it. But Mitch, you're right. People will look down on the state of Mississippi. I lived there back in the 60s. Okay. The friends I made in Mississippi in the 60s are my friends today. And people don't realize that. But if you make friends with people in Mississippi, guess what? They're your friends for life, period.
And everybody knows everybody in this state. Everybody knows everybody in this state. I'm working, part-time on the summer for the Cotton States Baseball League for Mr. Sam Creekmore and Frank Dodds, who are very well respected in the state of Mississippi. They have introduced me in the last 2 months to a lot of great people. I had a guy in my wedding, Jared Redding, who works for Inside the Rebels. We met at an Ole Miss football game, and we became best friends. Like brother, I mean, he's like a brother to me now. He was in my wedding, and whenever he gets married, I'm probably going to be in his wedding. That's what the state of Mississippi means to me. So when I saw this weekend, it really angered me, and I took it personally on Twitter because a lot of people look down on this state. I left Memphis of all the crime in Memphis. We left Memphis and moved down here to have a better life for our future. I mean, we just got married and have a better life for our future kids. And this state's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it is. What the interesting thing, you look at college baseball, it is getting more and more popularity. as we see it. And you get into Omaha and Franz, you're talking about Florida, talking about LSU, Tennessee from the SEC, Oral Roberts. I think that college baseball, you're bringing Oklahoma and Texas into the league. It's just going to get stronger. And that field of 64, it's really neat. It's a neat setup. It's different than anything because you have 16 regional hosts. It's I love what is going on in college baseball now. Franz, the Gators, they're strong. What is 16 years Kevin Sullivan's been at Florida? He's been to how many super regionals and now how many College World Series?
Well, he's been to the College World Series 8 times. So that means he's won 8 of them in 15 years. He lost one to Southern Miss, believe it or not. And that was in, I think it was 2009. It might have been 2010 that Florida lost to Southern Miss. I have I'm going to go off topic for about a half second here. I had a group of guys that we were buddies and when we were in Mississippi, and a guy named Tommy Daldrell had a car. And in Mississippi, you could drive when you're 15. Tommy had a puke green 51 Plymouth, and we'd go places. And we'd go to Primo's up in Jackson, and they had 4 steps that go up to the second level. We'd go there on Friday. We'd get down on the first level, right by the steps. You know why? Because the girls from the Capitol got off work, and they all wore short skirts, and they climbed up to that second level, and we were looking up their dresses.
Yeah, there you go.
We'd go to Hattiesburg because at that time, Southern Miss, there were 12 women to every 5 men at the University of Southern Mississippi. We'd go there and girls would come up there. They didn't care that we were young because we were just guys, and they're in a place where it's a dogfight for every guy. We'd go over to Natchez. I mean, Mississippi has stuff, and the memories are great there. And this is what bothers me when I hear what you say, Mitch, because I know it's true that there's this elitist attitude coming out of Tennessee now. Hey, do it 10 years like they did back in the 90s when they had Philip Fulmer there, and the Tennessee-Florida game was basically the SEC championship game just about every year. Do it like that. When you get to be where you can do that, then you can talk. Florida hadn't done it in a while. I'm not talking, but I can tell you what, I can talk about our baseball team. They're pretty darn good. Yeah. I can talk about our track team. They're pretty darn good.
Yeah. No, you've got a lot to go. Listen, here's some interesting stuff, Mitch, that Franz gave me. Oh, I'm trying to see here when he gave these are national championships won by each school in the SEC. Arkansas's totals include, the previous Southwest Conference before they joined the SEC. So with track and field heavily weighted on this, Arkansas has 50, LSU 48 national championships, Florida 41. And then you got
7.
Yeah, 47 now. Okay. Mm-hmm. So Georgia 32, Alabama 28, Tennessee 22, and Auburn 18. And you think about the different sports and all, Mitch. In Mississippi per capita, they put out more NFL players than any state in America. And out Mobile and Detroit, I think, are the 2 cities that put out the most players. Mitch, let's talk now about going out to Omaha, just for the fans that are on the fence. Should I go? Should I not? Well, if you can, you should go, shouldn't you?
Absolutely. Omaha is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and I got to go last year. I followed Ole Miss out there, got to cover Ole Miss's ride to the national championship, last team in and last team standing. It was a remarkable, remarkable trip. Like I said, I had planned on going out there, had Kentucky and Southern Miss won, had gotten approved for the credentials, had hotels booked. But Omaha's special. I was looking at Twitter this morning, and the Jealous Shots at Rocco's has updated the board and has all the 8 teams left. And Ole Miss last year, I don't know exact total, they sold probably 30,000, 40,000 Jealous Shots. I fully expect, Rob and Franz, the LSU fans will break that record tenfold this year, because LSU has been so starved to get back out to Omaha. And, last year when I went, there were LSU fans and Mississippi State fans that had made the trip, that come out to Omaha each and every year. The left field lizards at Mississippi State from Dudy Noble Field were out there, and they were tailgating, and they had their maroon and white on. And, it really – if you've been to Hoover and you've been to the SEC baseball tournament, which I try to go to every year, couldn't go this year, but I try to go to at least Hoover every year. But if you've been to Hoover, you need to go out to Omaha, because Omaha is a bigger scale. The city is completely built around the College World Series. And if you get the chance, go to Stadium View Sports Cards. It's ran by a guy named Piv. Sorry, it's early in the morning after a late night. A guy named Piv, and Mr. Piv has been doing this for 55, 60 years of College World Series, dating back all the way back to Rosenblatt Stadium. He's got a sports memorabilia store right across the street from the old Rosenblatt Stadium. When you walk in, he's got a cooler out front full with all the good beer that you want, the Miller Lite, the Busch Lights. There's no Bud Lights in there, guys. No Bud Lights. But there's all the Miller Lights and all the Busch Lights out there. He gives you a beer and you walk around. I did a whole 25, 30-minute podcast with him and wrote an article about him that you can check out on my website, The Mitch Davis Show. Barstool has been out there. Dave Portnoy's been out there. Peter Burns. I mean, Stadium View Sports Cards is a pretty cool place if you go to the College World Series.
Well, look, have a Hams beer with him. Franz, have you been to this place in Omaha that he's talking about?
I know, yeah. Omaha, people think of it as the steak place, and they do have good steaks there. My mom was an insurance agent for Mutual of Omaha back in the day.
There you go. Now, Franz, Mitch is too young to remember one of our favorite TV shows growing up, Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom with Marlon Perkins. Remember that?
Well, Marlon,
great.
Here's what I remember. Marlon is 6 miles away. Jim's down there fighting 6 lions off, going to try to rip him apart. Marlon, meanwhile, is 6 miles away looking at it through binoculars.
Well, the best, Mitch, you've got to look it up on YouTube. Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom with Marlon Perkins. What Franz is referencing is, Marlon would be up there in the helicopter. He was the curator at the St. Louis Zoo, but he would be up in a helicopter and go, while Jim is down below in Crocodile Creek here in Indonesia, it's good to know that his family is covered by our comprehensive loss of life, limb, and liberty Mutual of Omaha policy. And Jim's down there screaming and thrashing in the water, and of course Marlon Perkins would be on the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson a lot. So would Jim Fowler, but Jim was a badass, Franz. I mean, you got to say that, but what I love, Mitch. Mitch, you are a young guy who gets the passion as a writer, and Franz knows this as a great writer, GatorBaitMedia.com. You better be passionate about what you're covering. Hum-ho and going through the motions, that's no fun. And the other one is the number of articles that I read out there where people don't indent 5 spaces to the right. The punctuation, the grammatical errors are just horrible. And people judge you. Damn right they judge you by the words you use in your vocabulary and how you write and all. So bottom line, Mitch, you're writing great stuff. That stuff really matters. Set yourself apart. It's like the people your friends, your kids' friends, when they're young and they come over, they thank you for letting me spend the night tonight. Thank you for taking me to the ball game. Thank you. And what can I do to help the next morning after a party? They come in there and help clean up all the destruction. Mitch, you're getting it. You're getting right on track. Hang on. We're going to take a quick break. Want to come back. Love this baseball banter back and forth with Mitch. And I'm going to tell you something with Franz and Buddy Martin. You need to get in contact with these guys, Mitch. And for mentors, when you're a bike rider, get on the back wheel of the fastest riders. Ride with Franz and Buddy. We need you to keep doing what you're doing. We'll be back right after this quick break on Sidelines.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Interesting talking about Jim Fowler, Marlon Perkins, Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom. And let me say something about one of our sponsors, RumbleBoxingGym.com, 1835 Union Avenue in Memphis, right there at the corner of Union and McLean across from Walgreens. Bottom line, they're still offering the BOGOs, buy one, get one. And you can go in there now and check the classes out. Boxing, they're 45-minute workouts, a lot of calisthenics, dumbbells, and a lot of hitting the bag, okay? That is one of the best workouts you're going to get. Rumble Boxing Gym. It's worth every penny. Talk to them about membership rates, but you were able to go to classes. They have classes every day. They start early in the morning, 5:30, 6 o'clock, so a lot of people like to get up. I know I'm up at that time of day, but it is a great workout. Rumble Boxing Gym, the first of 3 locations in the Memphis market for Ann Camp Lee and the great team that she has assembled. When we talk, both of y'all, talking about baseball competitiveness, and Franz, you're really high on Oral Roberts. That's a team that you like. They let loose. Mitch, you got a favorite going in right now? I know that obviously he's got his Gators, but give me your favorite or two.
I back to LSU. I love this LSU team. I love what Jay Johnson has built. I love Paul Skeens. I love Dylan Cruz, Tommy White, Trey Morgan. I mean, top to bottom, that LSU team. And they're not a team that you just hate because they're cocky or anything. They are a team that loves baseball, that's good at baseball. And unlike, the team that they're going to be playing on Saturday night, they're not prideful. LSU does not take boast in beating a team, like a Southern Miss or something like that. The more wins that Tennessee gets, the cockier they get. And Franz and Rob, I go back to what my grandmother used to teach me in Sunday school. Pride always comes before the fall. We saw it last year with Tennessee when they lost to Notre Dame in the Super Regionals. I'm afraid that's what we're going to see again this year because, they're facing LSU. LSU really doesn't give a damn about, you got a pitcher that can throw 102. Well, that's cute. We've got 6 of them in the bullpen, plus Paul Skeens, who's going to be in a major league starting 5 rotation next year. Yeah, that's kind of cute that you got Chase Burns that can top out at 102. That's cute. LSU is going to roll away with Tennessee because pride always comes before the fall.
I like LSU a lot come out of that bracket. But I will say this. Anybody who thinks Wake Forest Gump can't play, you got another thing coming. To have the ERA they have in that bandbox, I'll tell you what, if Florida had played in that stadium, Florida would have hit 200 home runs this year. No question about it. But to have that kind of ERA that they have playing in that stadium where pop flies go over the fence, that's pretty remarkable. They haven't been to the College World. They've been to the College World Series one time. That was 1955, and they won it in 1955. So that may be the last time an ACC. Well, Virginia won, but I think before that before Virginia won, I think that was the last time an ACC team had won a national championship in baseball. So they've got a really good thing going there at Wake Forest. But, you've got Tennessee and LSU. I think an awful lot of people would love to see LSU smoke Tennessee for one basic reason, and that is I don't know any coach or player on another team anywhere in the SEC that likes Tony Vitello. I can't think of a single one. He maybe he's the next, the second coming, for all I know. But for somebody as arrogant as he is, and he projects that arrogance, it just doesn't. We got people who like each other in this league. I mean, they really do. They get it between the lines, and by golly, they want to just kick your butt. But game's over. You see, everybody's happy. They love to compete against each other. These four, Florida had South Carolina here, and those South Carolina kids, just as respectful as they could be, our Florida kids were just as respectful as they could be of each other. And I guarantee you that will be the case if Florida plays LSU in this tournament. Florida and LSU, they will embrace each other. For one thing, half the team on LSU played in the state of Florida, and these kids know each other.
Exactly.
Friends all their lives.
Yeah.
But I don't know anybody that actually likes Tony Vitello. I don't know. Tommy, do you like Tony Vitello?
Never met the guy. Can't answer the question.
There we go. That's a good answer. Mitch, look, I know you got to get back.
Didn't like? Well, he never met Tony Vitello.
Yeah. Now, Mitch, I know you got to get back to the vault. There, you work for Republic Bank, but tell people how they can follow you. Love having you on here. We're going to get you back on talking a lot of baseball, so expect another call here during the week. It is summertime. We're having a lot of fun, but this is great stuff. But how can they follow you?
Absolutely. TheMitchDavisShow.com and on Twitter, MitchDavis_8. If you're in the New Albany, Mississippi area, come check us out at Cotton States Baseball League on the weekend, Saturday and Sunday. Got a lot of great talent. Got kids that are going to be playing at Nicholls State. Got kids that are JUCO kids that are trying to get to the next level. Cotton States Baseball League. And Rob, I'm going to drop this little nugget out here before I leave. Check us out, Max South Sports. Next Saturday, your boy's going to be doing color commentating for Max South Sports, doing that for the first time for them, and not my first time broadcasting, but first time in the state of Mississippi. So really excited about that, and excited to continue to promote the Cotton States Baseball League, a wonderful wooden bat development league for college athletes to come down and play a good game of baseball over the summer.
Love it. We want to hear more about it. Mitch, have a great day. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
You bet. All right, Mitch Davis, MitchDavisShow.com. And Tommy, we've been having a really cool discussion. Franz Beard and I, he, of course, with GatorBaitMedia.com, talked about the College Baseball World Series. But we started off talking about what's going on in the Pac-12. And I think the Pac-12, they're so far out there. I don't know if they can be helped. I don't think they can be saved from themselves. Big 12, Big 10, they are this. The ACC mirrors because of the geographical footprint. I don't have anything against University of North Carolina, and I'm not saying this just because you're on here, but you're an ag school, you're an engineering school. I got a lot in common with you. My alma mater, Alabama Polytechnic Institute, Auburn University. Brother-in-law played at Virginia Tech. And I'm sitting there saying, if they were going to take a school from North Carolina, I'd rather have NC State because their fans are more like the fans in the SEC. Wolfpack fans, you've got a production company called Pack Productions. And I've noticed when I watch NC State and I watch ACC Network, NC State people just love that university, not the records of the teams. It's important, damn it, to win. I know that, but I just call it like I see it. Am I off? And I think you'd be a much better fit than North Carolina or Virginia because, quite frankly, Duke as well, they're elitist pinheads. But that's my opinion.
I was waiting for something to drop there, but no, I
women and children, beware.
That's right. No, I agree with you, Rob. I think that, look, I'm biased, obviously, right? And everything UNC and the color light blue makes me want to just, makes me want to get sick to my stomach. But anyway, no, I agree with you. I think, NC State's more of a I don't want to say good old boys, but they're just like the salt of the earth kind of people. They're not afraid to get their hands dirty and get in there and work and do things like that. And I think that kind of shows with our football team and how we've always been. But we have NC State is a fantastic fan base there, and they don't have much. I mean, let's face it, we haven't really had a whole lot of big time success in a long time, and we've had some good teams. We've made some NCAA tournaments. We've had some good bowl games, things like that. But we're not up there in that elitist category. But every year in and year out, we hold our own right across the board, and we're a top 25 team most of the time when it comes to bat football. And but our fans are still there, and they're still crazy about the team. And like you said, they love the school, they love the team. Whereas I think I'm not going to put words in because I'm not a fan, but the Carolina fans and the Duke fans and the Virginia fans, I feel a little more bandwagon-y. They think it's the cool thing in North Carolina to be a Tar Heel, and they're sure enough to let you know they're a Tar Heel when the Tar Heels are good. But when they're not good, they're not necessarily wearing their shirts and bragging about it, anything like that. Whereas NC State fans, loyal to no matter what. So I think there is a little bit of a difference there, and I kind of feel like that mindset and mentality is more like the SEC, right? People love their school no matter what. Whether they're the bottom of the barrel or whatever, they're still going to talk crap about, their rival or whatever. So I feel like that's a little more NC State's kind of mojo.
I covered NC State. I was there every single ball game in the 73-74 season. Monty Towell is one of my good friends. He lives here in Gainesville even today. And but I covered every single ball game they played for David Thompson's last 2 years at North Carolina State.
So you didn't see him lose very much, did you, Franz?
Let's see. They lost a game to UCLA.
That's right.
In the 73-74 season, and that was in St. Louis. And different story when they played them in Greensboro.
That's right.
Great ball game. People forget Monty Towell may have only been 5'5".
Oh, that's giving him an extra inch or two there, I think.
They listed him at 5'7", but I know 5'5" guys, 5'6" guys who could post him up. But the fan base at North Carolina State was always very, very, very much into the school itself. Never forget, Penn State comes down to play at it was Carter Stadium back in that day. They had
that's right. And I was at that game.
They hadn't added the Finley there yet, but Carter Stadium was a 12-7 game. Johnny Evans saves the game with about a 55-yard punt out of the end zone. Just when everybody thought that a short punt and Penn State would run the ball in, and he unloaded about a 55-yard punt. He kicked it out of the end zone. They wind up the ball. Their guy got hit, like one of the Bucky twins. I think it was Don Bucky, I think, was the wide receiver. I think Dave Bucky was the quarterback, but one of the Bucky twins hit him, and Penn State didn't have enough time. 12-7 ball game, great ball game. But the fan base was always genuine. Carter Stadium, you loved going there and being in the press box. They had all the writers were on one row, on one level. And down below, they had a grill. You could go down there and get a burger. That was cooked from their ag school. One of their cows gave his life so we could eat, and we appreciated that so much. The R.J. Reynolds Tobacco Company put packs of cigarettes there, and everybody. There's how things have changed. I mean,
oh my God.
If you came to the ball game, in the press box, everybody had a pack of cigarettes or a fresh pack of cigarettes waiting for them. And most of the guys just lit them right up. I mean, times have changed. Yeah. The North Carolina State, I got to tell you one more story. I'm getting wound up here. But North Carolina State beat Carolina 28-26. This was in 1973. Lou Holtz is the coach there. It was 28-6 with 7 minutes to go. And they had 2 bad punt snaps. And so North Carolina final score ends up 28-26. And afterwards, which Lou Holtz told us that, here's my home phone number. If anybody who's on the North Carolina State campus can snap a football for my punter, I'll give you a scholarship today. But going into there was a guy named there was another writer, and I'll keep out of respect for his family, and he was with a major newspaper in North Carolina. The elevator's open. He pulls out and he says, "Drunk again, boys." He walks over there, puts his typewriter down, lays his head there, and slept till the last 7 minutes. The only part of the game he saw was the 7 minutes of that North Carolina came back. Wrote one of the most brilliant football stories I've ever read in my life.
Wow. And what was the score in that game when they came back?
It was 28-6. And then North Carolina scored in the last 7 minutes, scored 3 touchdowns. Final score was 28-26.
How the heck do you remember that?
Franz is the world's most interesting man, along with Frank Duffy.
Wow.
He's incredible information. I think the SEC, and we talk about NC State, Clemson, they're like that. It's sort of like the movie Kingpin when Ishmael Borg went off with Woody Harrelson, and the old man there at the family there in Amish country said they're going to send their brother Levi, their son. He goes, "Ishmael's always been weird, but he's one of us, so we love him." And they went to look for him. That's the SEC. And I noticed the ag schools, there is something about the ag schools, Tommy, but agriculture, engineering. We know about the research triangle there in Raleigh. You get over there to Raleigh. Raleigh to Wilmington is what, 3 hours or 2 hours?
2 hours.
Okay.
Because
you grew up there.
Back in the day, it wasn't I-40. It was 421. And you had to take it through Benson and all that stuff. It took like 3 hours, but now it's 2 hours. Yeah.
Hey, I remember the old route, Memphis to Birmingham, going through Carbon Hill, Guin, Twin, Brilliant, Jasper, Winfield. And they used to, if you got pulled over for a ticket, they took you to jail and you wrote a check. You better hope it cleared. They come look for you. But let's get into the ACC, Tommy. A lot's been happening, and I wish and I hope that you're involved in a big way. I don't like to be casually involved in anything, but Franz and I talk about it. The ACC does more or less what the SEC does. Back 100 years ago, a lot of the schools that are in the ACC and the SEC were all in the Southern Conference. Are we going to, and I don't want to see this happen, where we start rating each other, but a lot of people predict we're going to have 4 super conferences, okay? And they'll be like the NFL model, NFC East-West, AFC East-West. Do you want to see that happen? And what's the general talk from ACC people about Florida State and Clemson saying, we're producing and carrying way too much of the burden. We should be, Texas did that, and it destroyed and blew up the Big 12. What's being done to prevent that in the ACC? And what do you know, maybe behind the scenes, whatever you can say about this commissioner and how strong his team is?
You know what, Rob? I wish I could speak a little more educated about that actual issue. I don't know much about the commissioner and his team as far as when it comes to that. I just do know that, and we've talked about this before. I'm a traditionalist, and I like the way everything is set up. I was upset when the ACC started expanding back when I was in school, and they added Florida State, and all these other teams were coming into the ACC. And then, years later, Pittsburgh and Syracuse and Boston, and all those things. I was upset about all that. I wanted to, because I was a purist. I liked the way it was. But I understand that things have to evolve. You have to keep up. You needed the big demographic footprint or geographical footprint for the TV rights and all stuff. It helps getting into the New York market and Syracuse and all stuff. So I get it. And look, we just have to accept the fact that college football is 100% a business. I mean, we love it, and we love watching it as fans, and we love being there and pulling for our team. But it is turned from a quote unquote, student athletes playing to now a business. And so you're talking about, when you talk about the NIL and all the stuff of paying the players and doing all that stuff in the transfer portal, I mean, it literally is a pro league now. It's just whatever you want to call it. It's a pro league. These guys are getting paid. They can go and come when they please. It's just changed. So I think when you talk about the ACC and the movements and people maybe jumping, to different conferences or whatnot, who the heck knows what's going to happen, because it's all about the money now. It really is, I think. And I think the loyalty and that kind of stuff is kind of, going by the wayside. But I will say, like, when in reference to, Florida State and Clemson, yeah, I mean, Clemson's been pulling the weight for a long time now. I mean, obviously been the dominant team in the kind of entire country for a long time now, but it ebbs and flows. I mean, there was the days when Miami was the powerhouse before when all that stuff was happening, and Florida State was the top ranked team, and now they're getting back into the mix. So it's going to ebb and flow. Clemson, didn't have a year last year that they would be proud of, considering what they've been doing the past couple of years. So, it ebbs and flows a little bit, but I think that, at the end of the day, like, I would love to see the ACC stay completely intact. But that, again, that's me being the traditionalist as much as possible and saying, and I'm such an ACC guy and just loved it, grew up watching it. The 4 super conferences, I don't know if that's the right answer, because then what happens to all the other schools out there that are still damn good programs that don't have a shot at a national championship and stuff like that? And that goes back to why the NCAA tournament's the greatest sporting event in all, because everybody's got a shot. Weber State can get hot and make a run. George Mason can get hot and make a run. I mean, that's what makes it so great. And you're just never going to get that in college football, because there's such a diversity between the smaller schools and the bigger schools. But you still would like to see those sometimes small schools, the Cincinnatis and the people of the world that are Division I programs, that actually have a good team one year to have a shot at it. But super conferences, I think, are going to get away from a lot of that.
Yeah, I'm not. I know it's talked about a lot, but I don't like the idea, because I'm a purist, and we all know that there's evolution, there's change. I mean, there's change in the stock market every second of every day. I mean, but there are basic axioms and principles that endure through time. And we've talked about this. We had Jackie Sherrill on recently, and he has talked about this for the last 31 years. He said, I'm not saying I love this, but this is where I see it going. Well, you look about having, if you had 60 teams in those super conferences, then the other schools would have a national championship as well. He said, don't think for a second it wouldn't be just as important to them to have a national championship, because we know that the number 13 team is going to bitch and moan Phil Mickelson style when they're not selected for the 12-team playoff. And I think that what we've got to do is always find ways to keep the interest of the fans at peak level. I mean, because you talked about your ultimate goal as a coach, as an athletic director, is for the fans not to be asking about the schedule as much as they are, I'm going to see NC State play. I'm going to see the Gators play. I'm going to see Clemson play, because that's all they really care about. And when you're going to Raleigh or Clemson or Gainesville, you're going to the game, of course, but it's the pregame and the postgame with all your friends that makes it so much fun. I mean, Tommy and Franz, I think anybody listening on this show, we have a lot of cerebral folks listening. How much business do you think is conducted on a football weekend, or at a basketball, or out at a baseball game, in a duck blind, on the golf course, after you finish playing tennis? It's hard to talk when you're playing tennis with somebody, but I think that is what will always keep the fans coming. The love of the laundry, Ivan Mazel's quote, we do. We love, Franz's recollection of these games in the 70s. And I can remember games then, I can remember games now, but that's what hooked us. My 2 boys were at Kick 6 in Auburn. I gave them the 2 tickets that I had in section 42, and they were that is something that they will never forget. They are hooked. They watch every game. It's tradition. I think all you really need to do is just Tommy, you got daughters. You take your girls to Raleigh. They wear their NC State stuff, win or lose. Now my wife, she says Auburn. She says y'all get mad if the other team scores, And I'm like, well, it is. But when you got an in-state rival like Alabama, it's everybody's playing off each other. But Tommy, when you're going to NC State, you also probably have some great business relationships there.
Oh,
and after the game, you're not going to pout and not talk to your clients.
No, look, there's no better way to bond with friends, family, clients, business people, or whatever, than a good Saturday afternoon, drinking a cocktail at a tailgate and then going to watch a football game. Because everybody's on the same team as far as like wanting to enjoy the college football. Even if your best friends are, Chapel Hill fans, and I'm an NC State fan, like there's still a camaraderie there of the rivalry of like, hey, we're going to talk crap to each other. We're going to jab each other a little bit. We're going to have fun with it, but it still bonds you. And then obviously there's the extreme fans that, lose their crap and they get upset with each other about, even though they're friends, about rivalries. But, it's a bonding time, and it's a great time to just to come together and enjoy the wonderful game of college football and the atmosphere of college football. And to me, there's, as far as a way to spend a fall day on a Saturday, there's no better way to do it. From a business standpoint and just from a social standpoint and networking standpoint, it's gold, especially if you get out there in a couple of 3 or 4 hours before the game and start your tailgate and meeting new friends and meeting people. It's a great way to spend a Saturday for sure.
Yeah, it is. And Franz, that people you have your tickets with, for years, you get to know each other and you watch them have kids and grandchildren and all. That's what keeps us coming back, Franz.
Well, there's tradition in the South that you don't have. And people talk about Ohio State, Michigan, and it's a great rivalry game, no question. I've been to an Ohio State, Michigan game, froze my butt off, but I was there battling the frostbite. What can I say? But there is a tradition here in the South about our teams. I personally liked it better, quite frankly, when the SEC was 10 teams. And we knew each other, It's expanded. One thing I will say is this: Greg Sankey, as long as Greg Sankey is the commissioner of the SEC will be 16 teams. He is not going to expand anymore. The only team he would make an exception for would be Notre Dame. And if Notre Dame wanted to join the SEC, he would grab it in a heartbeat. Just like, little Jimmy Phillips sits there, has calluses on his knees from the prayers about, Lord, just let Notre Dame come to our league, because the only way ESPN will rewrite that contract is if Notre Dame comes into the league. And the only league Notre Dame can come into is the ACC to play football. They can't go play football any place in any other league except that. But here's the brilliance of Notre Dame. What do? Swarbrick's retiring. They go get the head of NBC Sports, who just gave them this really nifty contract that's going to pay them $65 million a year, double what the ACC is going to be making. So
that's tough. Because the ACC, Tommy, what are they? Franz getting 36. They're going to get 65. I hate that partially in, partially out.
Well, the ACC did it to itself, and they really did. I agree with Tommy. They overexpanded. They had a good 12-team league. They should have stayed there. They should have made it so that Maryland could not get out under any circumstance, but they didn't. They let Maryland off the hook. They should have. Maryland is an ACC school, and they let Maryland off the hook, which I think was one of the dumbest things that could have been done, because, goodness, I was a young sports writer, and boy, North Carolina State, Maryland basketball, it didn't get any better than that. It really didn't. Goodness, Lefty used to come over to my house. He's in Rocky Mount trying to recruit Phil Ford, and Lefty comes over to my house. He brings a bottle of Maker's Mark bourbon every time he comes over, has a couple drinks, leaves it on my kitchen counter. After Phil signs with North Carolina, well, Lefty didn't come by anymore for some strange reason. And but I had about 15 bottles of Maker's Mark that all that's coming out. My parents come up to visit me in Rocky Mount. My mom goes into the kitchen. She takes one look on the counter. She comes out holding this bottle of Maker's Mark, says, "Do we have a problem we need to be talking about?"
A lot of Lefty visits.
And that was just happy. And, my goodness, the rivalries that were there. And I loved the ACC back in those days. I loved going over to Chapel Hill and for North Carolina State, an old Carmichael Auditorium.
Yeah.
Wonderful place. I loved Reynolds Coliseum. Reynolds, you knew the rats would come up to you and introduce you to their grandkids. Got some popcorn you can throw us. I want to bring some home for the grandkids, and you knew the rats by name because you'd seen them for so many years. Things like that. We've lost something in that. Just like the SEC is going to go to 16 teams. It's the wave of the future. And quite frankly, if you're going to go 16 teams, you're not going to do better than bringing in Oklahoma and Texas. And the thing that makes that so good is there is that geographic tie-in there. How close is Florida State and Boston College? There's all these states in between that aren't part of the league. The one thing that the SEC does have is all the states connect to each other.
Yeah.
There's a geographical connection there. And maybe Missouri is an overnight hike from us, and nobody likes going to Columbia. I don't blame them. I've been there. I spent a month there one night. It seemed like it anyway. But there is a geographic connection. It's kind of like the rivalry between North Carolina State, and Duke.
Yeah.
There is a geographic. You can even throw Wake Forest Gump in there. There is a geographic connection because of the closeness of the schools. That's why East Carolina used to have a thing. The Big Four is dead. The Big Five is alive. Well, they were the big wannabes. They wanted to be, and Leo Jenkins pushed it, and everybody told Leo, "Look, we gave you a med school. What more can you ask? We're not going to let you play football with us."
Yeah. Franz, let me say this one to Tommy, because I know, Tommy, you've got to go in a minute. But, the ACC, what about doing a swap maybe to get West Virginia into the league? Would you want West Virginia in the league? I know that I used to hear from my family up in Virginia, my in-laws, my brother-in-law played at Virginia Tech, but no way that they hated West Virginia. That was a great rivalry, though. But I'm thinking, I'm with Franz, the geographical footprint that's connected. Boston College and Syracuse need to be in another league. I mean, it just you want people, you want to play people and have rivalries with people that you work with, that you see every day, because it's fun to give each other a hard time, Tommy.
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly right. I mean, I've never felt like Syracuse, even till this day. I'm like it just doesn't feel like they're part of the league. I mean, I know they are, but even when the ACC has run the ACC tournament up in the Barclays Center up in New York or something like that, they've run the ACC men's basketball tournament up there. It's not the ACC men's basketball tournament.
No, it's
not. I mean, it needs to be down in North Carolina, or maybe Atlanta at the worst. But
Greensboro.
Well,
Greensboro.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. The traditional is Greensboro. I get it. But look, we've all been to Greensboro. It's a great little city, but there is not a whole lot to do in Greensboro outside of the game when you're at the game. I mean, that there's that factor of it too. But I agree. Greensboro, Charlotte, anywhere in that central location, and where you're gonna pack the stadium pretty much every game, because all the diehards for the ACC basketball are in that little footprint right there. They're not up in Syracuse. They're not. I mean, they love their basketball, but
yeah,
it doesn't really make sense. But I get it from a marketing standpoint to try to get the league out there and to get it up into the New York area and all that kind of stuff, and for the money and the when they have the corporate sponsors and everything like that, it's nice for them to say, hey, we're in New York and we're all the way down to Florida. I mean, I get all that business side of it, but again, it goes back to what I was saying earlier. It's a business. It is a business.
Yeah.
College sports is just we've always known it, but now it's even more prevalent. It just is a business. So wherever the money's going to come from, and adding somebody like West Virginia, if it makes sense from a monetary standpoint and it gets to the next level for some reason, somehow that they'll do it, then maybe it will fit, but then there's always, and people always talk about the academic standards too. Do they meet the academic standards and things like that? So I don't know.
That we always hear that. Tommy, I know you've got a meeting to get to. We run out of time. Let people know how they can follow you. We got Rodney Orr, Tighter Insider coming up here in just a minute, but great stuff as always. And I'm with you. I don't want to see the ACC. I don't want to see these conferences go away. So tell them how they can follow you and your great production company.
Yeah, so I've got a production company here out of Atlanta called Pack 30 Productions. You check it out. We do everything from podcast production to video work to corporate sales videos, anything you can imagine. Even do some small movies occasionally, things like that. And then you can always follow me in my talent work at TommyKane_talent on Instagram. I do my acting and TV hosting work and all that stuff on there. And thanks for having me on, Rob. It's always a pleasure. And Franz, good to meet you, my friend.
Meet you too.
Always. Yeah. We'll take a quick break. Be right back. That was Tommy Kane, ACC man over in Atlanta. After this, with Rodney Orr, Tighter Insider.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Right, Rob Browne back with Franz Beard. GatorBaitMedia.com has been with us. And we're going to switch gears, head down to Tuscaloosa. Rodney Orr, Tighter Insider. It's only $48 a year. If you are a Tide fan, you want to know what's going on, subscribe to Tighter Insider. And Rodney will talk more about the forums they have on there, some of the best discussions on college football and sports anywhere. Rodney, man, we're getting close. I booked my hotel reservations for SEC Media Days up there in Nashville coming up, going to be July 17th, 18th, 19th, and 20th. A lot going on between now and then. But we've been talking a lot about, conferences, realignment, expansion. But what we think is so special about the SEC is how we're all on top of each other. Even in Tuscaloosa, you've got folks like this report, which is sponsored by Dr. Waller May and Guy May. Dr. Wayne May started it all, May Veterinary Clinic in 1964, Tuscaloosa and Northport. For the best veterinary medicine care for your dogs, cats, and other animals, go to May Veterinary Clinic. They also have a dog and cat daycare facility called Camp May with its own outdoor pool. They even have condos, connecting cat condos for cats that live in the same house. It is a great place to go if you have cats, dogs that you love. May Veterinary Clinic, Tuscaloosa, Northport. But Rodney, you've even got Auburn fans in Tuscaloosa. You got Alabama fans in Auburn. That's what makes this so much fun. Could you imagine what it's going to be like for the rivalry with Rutgers versus Southern Cal in volleyball? I mean, how are they going to make this stuff up? And then the SEC, we've talked about it. It's all connected. You've lived in Texas. The people in Texas sometimes get a little bit full of themselves, that the Longhorns do. But at the same time, They got great tradition and all, but now they're coming into the SEC. They're going to find out what competition is really like, aren't they? Rodney, are you there? Hopefully you're there, Rodney. Can you hear us? Okay. Let us know, Rodney, when you can hear us. I'm not sure if you've got a technical issue or not. Make sure you're not muted, but just jump on in here whenever you are. Rodney, are you there? Okay. He'll be with us here momentarily. But Franz, I'm going back to this discussion, and what you said is exactly right. And that's why the possibility of Greg Sankey, if the SEC were to expand, if Notre Dame said, hey, we want to join your league, think about it. Kentucky connects to Indiana, which is where Notre Dame is. They call that area up there, Louisville and Kentucky and Indiana and all, Kentuckiana. It's a neat deal. Okay. Rodney, can you hear us? We lost you. Okay. But Rodney will be back with us in just a second. But I think that would make sense. But Notre Dame in the SEC, would they suck up all the oxygen in the room? Maybe they could in the past, but no. I'm not sure. Not yet. I don't think anymore. Rodney, jump on in here when you get with us.
I'm here.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Okay. There we go. Rodney, we've been talking a lot about conference expansion and alignment, and the theme pretty much today of how all the states in the Southeastern Conference are connected with one another. And now you got Texas coming in. A&M joined in 2012. We all know that. But you've got University of Texas coming in, and they're going to have to. They're going to come to learn really fast that they're not, the biggest show on earth. There's a lot of programs that will go toe to toe with them. Alabama plays Texas this year in Tuscaloosa. That was a hell of a game last year. Oklahoma, they've played Alabama a couple of times in the last 20 years, but now that's going to be regular rivalries. Do you like this expansion? And 16 seems like more than enough.
Yeah, I mean, I just kind of go with the flow, Rob. I mean, it is what it is. It's the direction it's headed. So, it's going to be interesting. It's, certainly, if I look at it in a positive way, I think it's going to be great. The fact that I spent many years in Texas, I look forward to seeing Alabama. Hopefully they dominate Texas like they have dominated Texas A&M since they came into the league. But no, I think there's some great rivalries that could be established. I mean, Alabama playing Oklahoma and the various teams, however you want to, kind of pair them up. I think there's some. It's certainly adding those two programs to the SEC is going to bring a lot of excitement, I think. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it, and certainly can't wait to see the schedule when it comes out.
And you start looking at conference scheduling, the 1-7 and the 3-6. Obviously, we know about those SEC spring meetings. You're going to play everybody on a 1-7 or a 3-6 twice in a 4-year period. Do you have a favorite of those two?
Between those two scheduling? Yeah. No, again, it is what it is. I kind of like you hate to lose some of the rivalries that you had. And again, I'll use Alabama as an example. You've got three really prominent opponents with Tennessee, LSU, and Auburn. You hate to lose two of those when you're going the 1-7 route, but it is what it is. And, that's the route they're taking for now. I think eventually it would not surprise me if they change that, but, so I really don't have a preference necessarily, other than to say that you do hate to lose those rivalries that you've had through the years.
Yeah. And Franz, we've been talking about this so much, but that's a temporary is the 1-7. And right. I think Peter Burns came out last week and said since 2006, when the Pac-12, the Big 10, Big 12, whatever, and their number's been crazy, went to a 9-game schedule. They haven't won a national championship, but I know in 2014, Ohio State did beat Oregon in the first year of the college football playoff. Friends, along the lines of what Rodney's saying, you just go with the flow. I mean, whatever they say, you're going to deal with it. Do you think that once Texas and Oklahoma come in, ESPN will quickly realize, hey, we need that ninth game. It's more money?
Well, look, this has already been a negotiation for a while, and ESPN's not going to commit the money till the SEC commits to 9 games. It's one of these things, which came first, the chicken or the egg, what, the SEC saying, well, you give us the money and we'll schedule it. And ESPN saying, you schedule it, we'll give you the money. At some point in time, ESPN will sit there with Greg Sankey and they'll say, the time is now, do it, and it'll happen. Because they'll both be in agreement. Sankey wants the 9 games. ESPN wants the 9 games too. But they've got to get the SEC on board. This is not going to be a case where there will be any kind of agreement for more money from ESPN until the SEC, first off, commits to the 9 games. Because when it commits to the 9 games, then comes the long-term contract. And that's the thing about it, is ESPN is not going to do anything on a short-term contract. That's one thing for certain. It's going to have to be a long-term contract. And to have a long-term contract, you've got to have the agreement right up front. You got to have all that done so that you can say, okay, here we are. This is our schedule. Now you can project 5 years in advance who's going to be playing who.
Yeah. Rodney, looking at Alabama's football team coming up this year, you and I have talked about this, and I know you're on a lot of shows, but the last 5 or 6 years, Alabama's been quarterback dependent per se. When you've got the kind of quarterbacks they've had, Jalen Hurts, Tua, Mac Jones, Bryce Young, why not? This year they brought Tyler Buckner in from the portal. You got Jalen Milroe, you got Ty Simpson there. Those are the 3 names that are in contention for the top spot. Is it a bad thing if people say, well, Alabama and Nick Saban's going back to what he used to do 5 or 6 years ago, run heavy, which allowed them to have a much better defense and really better teams where they weren't in these shootouts. But you've got to have offense. But how low can Alabama drop? How much can they drop from that 45 points a game average before you get concerned? Because, again, if the defense is improved 40, 50% from what they have been, will it matter?
Yeah. Listen, I think that what they really want to do is to be more balanced. Like you said, the quarterback, relying on the quarterbacks. Before Tua, they really were more of a balanced team. And I say before Tua, it gradually worked to where what happened under Bryce was that they became far, far too reliant on the quarterback. You look at 2020, for example, with Mac Jones, and, they had Najee Harris running for 1,500 yards. They were very balanced throwing the ball, running it. Now, the last 2 years haven't been as much. So I think the key is they want to get back to being physical at the line of scrimmage, dominating up front, setting the tone with the relentless mindset. I'm quoting Nick Saban pretty much right there. So, I think they want to get back to obviously being very strong running the football. But they also, Rob, and Nick Saban made this really clear, that they want a quarterback who can distribute the ball effectively, that knows where to go with the ball, that is accurate. They want to utilize their personnel outside to make big plays in the passing game. I don't think they want to go back to being, having a guy carry the ball 46 times a game like Derrick Henry did. They want to be balanced. And I think that's, I've said this before, and I kind of hate to say it, but kind of like maybe what you see from Georgia, what you saw from Georgia the last couple of years with Stetson Bennett and the way they, kind of utilized all of their personnel very effectively.
Well, and it's not something that you say, well, wow, Georgia, look at their record the last couple of years. But you go back to 2017, Jeremy Pruitt is your defensive coordinator at Alabama, and I think they had the number one scoring defense in the country. And it was always one of the top 2 or 3 in the country. They ran the ball really well. And Najee Harris out of Antioch, California, hell of a player, first-round draft pick. And that day in and day out just makes your team tougher, Rodney, because the practices are tougher. So, if you've got a tough team, and also if you're trying to find your quarterback, and Tyler Buchner played in a few games at Notre Dame, but he doesn't have a whole lot of experience. When you're trying to find that quarterback and all, if you've got a strong defense and a strong running game to lean on, that helps in
absolutely
a million ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think that's definitely true. And that's certainly, I think, what they want to do offensively this year. They don't want to put the load on. You look at the 3 candidates right now, really, the top 3. Obviously Jalen Milroe has a little bit of experience. He's a great athlete. He still has a ways to go as a passer, consistent passer. Then you've got Ty Simpson, who I think has all the tools. He really does. Mac Jones wasn't ready as a redshirt freshman. Sometimes it just takes a guy a little bit of maturity to kind of become the guy. And I think that's probably where Ty is right now. Just can't project, when he'll be there. But then you have Tyler Buchner, as you mentioned, and I think Tyler Buchner's better than what some people think. Everybody's saying, well, why would you take this guy? He was a top-notch quarterback coming out of high school. He could have been really good at Notre Dame too. He had some injuries, I think, that kind of slowed him down. But I watch Tyler Buchner, I watch his tape, and I see a guy that potentially could be really, really good. So, but again, you don't want to throw the load on these guys. You want to be able to, like you said, kind of take some of the, the pressure off of the quarterback.
Yeah, Franz, you look at bringing in quarterbacks in the SEC. They've got so much talent around Tyler Buchner. I think that whoever the quarterback is, they're not going to be in a panic mode.
Well, I don't think Alabama's ever going to be in a panic mode. And I think Nick is going back to what they did in 2015. And they won a national championship with Jacob Coker as quarterback. Now, quite frankly, Rodney, you, Rob, and I probably have as much talent as Jacob Coker. But I'm just teasing when I say that. But Jacob Coker's job was this: hand the ball off. Now, he handed off to Derrick Henry, and they're not going to hand the ball off to somebody 46 times, as you mentioned before. But they're going to hand the ball off and then make you play 8 in the box. And when you play 8 in the box, they're going to throw the ball on one-on-ones to the wide receivers and the tight ends. It's a pretty simple formula. People tend to forget that's what Florida is going to do this year. That's why Florida and Alabama are 2 teams that people are saying, well, everybody, people are saying, well, Nick's losing it. No, he isn't. Nick's not losing it. Nick's never going to lose it. I'm going to tell you right now, he's not going to lose it. What he's going to do is he's going to adapt to what he thinks his personnel will do the best job for. I think Nick has looked at the fact that they've thrown the ball all over the yard the last 2 years, and they hadn't won ball games that counted. This year, he's going to go back to what he knows will win, and that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, Rodney, I agree with Franz 110%.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, I think that's true. I think, too, though, I will say this. I think to be able to win the big games, if you're going to beat Georgia, for example, I don't think you're going to line up and just run it down their throats. And this is why I think it's really important to have a quarterback, like Coach Saban said after A-Day, that can distribute the ball. Because I think you look at the teams that can challenge Georgia, their defense, it's the teams that can have the receivers who can cause them a lot of problems, the quarterbacks who can deliver the ball. But you have to be balanced, too. And I think, you look at a couple of years ago when Alabama, beat them in the SEC championship game. And, they were running the ball with Brian Robinson, even though he's a little banged up, but they're effective running the ball. But they were also, the things they did with Mechie and Jamison Williams. So I think you got to be able to have a little bit more balance.
Yeah,
well,
I agree with you.
I can't disagree with that. You got to be balanced. But here's the thing: is you've got to be able to run the ball effectively to force one-on-one matchups outside. That's why they were effective in 2015. Derrick Henry run the ball like a horse, obviously, but when when people tried to load up the box, you had the one-on-one matchups outside, and Nick was willing to do that, and that's what we do this year. It's not rocket science, and it's going to be successful.
Yeah, we're about out of time, guys, but this is great discussion because, again, everyone always wants to get ahead of themselves, Rodney. We got to run this new offense, whatever. A lot of it's going back to the basics and just out toughing and out physicaling people. Rodney, look, tell people how they can follow you, your great magazine, Tighter Insider website and all like that. Franz, awesome, GatorBaitMedia.com. Thanks for staying on with me. And Rodney, again, this is the May Veterinary Clinic report since 1964. May Veterinary Clinic, Tuscaloosa and Northport. 2 locations open every day. Drop off and pick up Sunday afternoons, 3 to 5 at the dog and cat daycare facility, Camp May. They even have an outdoor pool and connecting cat condos. But Rodney, I'll let you take us home. But let me say, most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. We are the greatest country in the history of the world because we got great people like y'all. Rodney, sign out.
Well, it's TighterInsider.com. It's only $48 a year, and you can get instant access with your credit card. Or if you prefer, there is an address there to send a check. Gives you all our premium information, a lot of recruiting stuff that we've had, but also coverage of, the baseball and the new coach they hired yesterday and all of those kinds of things. And our all sports forum. That's our community of Alabama fans right there on TighterInsider.com.
All right. Look, great stuff as always. Got a great show in line for tomorrow. Until then, thanks for listening. We are out of here.